Hey, hey, it is a Real Housewives of Orange County, Meat and Potatoes, Season 9, Episode 2. We open up, we're still in Hawaii with Tamara, Heather, and Vicky, and we just have gotten on the subject of Brooks. So what we finally find out, which I said this last week, is that Vicky's still with him. They both went to counseling separately, and now they're back together. And Tamara's like, okay, well, I'll give him a second chance. And when Vicky leaves the table, Heather's like, seriously? And Tamara's like, dude, Vicky's going to do what she wants to do regardless. So I'm just not going to get in the way. You can't really argue with her. So stay out of the way, and then I'll be there for her when she needs me. Which realistically is the most support that Vicky ever gets. I have never seen anybody really be like, man, that Brooks is a great guy. I mean, realistically, people either hate him, like Brianna does, just think he's bad for Vicky, which seems to be everyone else, that he's kind of shady and sneaky and slimy. And I think the only time I've ever even seen someone support Vicky at all was Gretchen last year. And Gretchen's support was like, well, people criticize Slade and I, so I'm not going to do that to you and Brooks, which is hardly a ringing endorsement for Brooks. Anyway, they're going to party that night with some of Tamara's friends who are in town. But Heather's like, oh, I'm going to go to bed early. I want to get up, fly home so I can see my kids. And they're like, see ya, loser. And they like party all night, and Heather goes home. So we cut over to Shannon, and her kids are getting ready for cotillion, which I did as a kid and my older siblings did. And I think my dad did as well. And all I remember is the lady had those little clappers to get everyone's attention, and she'd tell the guys to treat us like a Mack truck when dancing. And that's all I remember. But anyway, we see David there, and David just looks miserable. That's Shannon's husband. He, I don't know if he hates filming or if he hates Shannon or if their marriage is in trouble. I mean, clearly their marriage is in trouble, but he looks miserable in like every single scene we see him in. I just feel really bad. We see Tamara and Eddie discussing babies. She's splitting custody 50-50 with her ex-husband, and she's really miserable about that. We see that real life as well as on the show. She has a spooky party, and this is when Shannon gets to meet Tamara and Vicky. We still haven't met the other new housewife. She hasn't entered, so as of now, it's just 4 women. So Tamara has her like spooky kind of Halloween party, but it's not really a costume party. And Shannon seems to meet everyone. There's like a tarot reader and this and that. And she seems to get along really well with Vicky and Tamara. So that's kind of interesting. And at some point, Heather and Tamara, I guess, and Shannon are all talking. I don't think it's at the party. It's later. And there was some point, and she's talking about how she got jewels put in her teeth. And everyone's like, what? Like, basically, she feng shuied her mouth. And it was going to cost $20,000. And she's like, oh, I can't do that. And then the guy went and talked to his psychic. And the psychic was like, oh, she saved a nation in a past life. I always thought of the commercial, they said saved an Asian. But I'm pretty sure she said saved a nation. But I could be wrong. So she saved a nation in a past life. And so he's going to do it for free. And Heather's like, you know, I worry that people like you who are so trusting and are going to get taken advantage of. And Tamara's like, Heather, you can't say people like you. And Heather's like, I can say people like you when it's a positive thing. So we kind of are left off there. Let's see. And then Tamara brings up that she wants a baby with Eddie. And once again, we kind of see Heather and Shannon on 2 different sides. Heather's like, if you missed your kids, that's one issue. But having a baby with Eddie won't fix the fact that you are splitting custody. And then Shannon's like, well, yeah, but if she wants a baby with Eddie, then she should have one. And Heather's like, but that's not what she's saying. And Shannon's like, well, it kind of is what she's saying. So there we go. We kind of see some friction going on. We see Vicky with a therapist talking about Brianna and Michael and her family and Brooks and all that. And basically, Vicky wants to make everyone support her decisions and stay nearby and be happy. And her therapist is basically saying that you're not in control of all those things. You can't. Brianna is going to be moving, and she's allowed to do that. And she might not be happy, and that's not something you're in control of. You're only in control of your own reactions. And Vicky's like, I don't know about that. And lastly, Shannon has a party at her house. It's got a couple's party. And her and David fight the whole time. Loudly. And you can hear them. So it's very clear that they have some marriage issues. And I'm really hoping that it doesn't completely fall apart for their sake. But it's not looking so good. One of the interesting things I noticed, and it was definitely true by the end of the episode, is that Heather and Terry are getting a worse edit than normal. And I say a worse edit than normal because I don't see any of their behavior being different than any other season. What I see is that you're seeing more and more clips of them saying things, and instead of people laughing it off, they're like, I can't believe they said that. And I'm not saying it's not what happened. It's just I kind of under the impression that maybe it's more about Tamara and Vicky getting sick of Heather than it is that Heather's changed. Does that make sense? So Heather's probably the same person, Heather and Terry are probably the same people they've always been. They probably are being consistent, but it's getting on Tamara and Vicky's nerves. Now, I like Heather. I think that if I met her, we'd be good friends, and we'd sit around and we'd talk about how everyone else is wrong, and we judge other people, and we drink champs, and we'd have a great time. I think. It's always hard to tell because I haven't actually met her. But at the same time, she does have negative qualities, as we all do. And I think it's very legitimate that she might start rubbing people the wrong way, especially if they're not the best match as far as friends. So clearly Tamara and Vicky are a good match for friends. They kind of give and take at appropriate times, whereas I think Heather has a tendency to bump heads with them. I'll say it that way. So I'm going to predict that one of the big storylines we see is sort of the fall from grace for Heather and maybe Terry. Terry's less so because he doesn't really count. He's not a housewife. But I still like Heather. And I probably still will. But who knows? I might be saying something totally different in 3, 4, 5 weeks and I may regret this. But that is where I am right now. And I will see you guys later.